here. It's good to come back. It's good to see you again.
Nice to be seen.
A lot of things have changed.
Yes. You have a shadow right on your pretty face. We're going to move it. There you go.
Aww. So many questions.
You have time for about 1.5.
No problem. At the beginning you said, are you allowing yourself, are you being cooperative component to the path of most allowing or to the path of least resistance?
Which is another way of saying, do you usually feel good or do you usually feel not so good?
That clicked. That just sparked up the whole conversation about when I'm here on the cruise, I am in the path. I am the most cooperative, flowing component there ever could be.
Is it a little conditional? Don't feel bad, because most people offer almost all of their vibration in response to something that they are observing. So that's what we call conditional love. If the condition's right, I feel good. If the condition isn't right, I don't feel good. Where unconditional love or unconditional alignment is caring about alignment first and foremost, and then talking about the conditions later. Our favorite analogy that we've been offering that sort of sets this off into a good conversation is some conditions make you feel good and some not so much. So you figured it out. You've lived enough life. So you make a great big poster of what you need out of others, and you carry it around and you say, here I come. And when you see this poster, read the rules of my life and give this to me, because this is what I need from you. And of course, that's ridiculous. There are so many people in the world, and they're probably not going to read your sign anyway. You could walk around demanding that they all do what you need, or you could just tune into who you are. You could just find your own alignment without it being dependent upon what somebody else does. But we think it is worth acknowledging. It's important to acknowledge that you're a really sensitive person. And you pick up on how other people feel. So when someone in your vicinity has a thought about you or about something that you care about, depending upon where you are on the emotional scale, if it's a positive thought, you'll pick up on it if that's where you are. If it's a negative thought, you'll pick up on it if that's where you are. And most people in their sensitivity calibrate to what other people are thinking and then try to compensate for what other people are thinking. That's why people are so upside down and all around. That's why everybody wants to know what everybody else is thinking. And the basis of everything that we have been about forever in this teaching experience is to help you decide to calibrate to your own inner being rather than jumping around and trying to calibrate to what everybody else is thinking about anything.
I think I forget that when I live my regular life.
Most people do.
Cruise life and then my regular life.
Well, most people do, because there are a lot of people with a lot of strong thoughts around you. What we're getting at here, what this whole seminar is about, is your thoughts must be dominant, and your thoughts don't need to follow their thoughts. You don't want to follow people around that are on the lower half of the scale. Most people are insecure. You don't need to be. Most people are ornery. There's a lot more mean people than you ever knew were out there. They're on the raw and ragged edge. And then they're defensive and having knee-jerk responses to everything. Well, you just don't want to be a person who has knee-jerk responses to everyone. Just because somebody else is so insecure that they're having those thoughts doesn't mean you need to pick up on them and then try to compensate for them. You see? You get to feel good because you want to feel good, and because your inner being feels good, and your inner being feels good about every aspect of your life. Do you know that? Your inner being feels good about every aspect of your life because your inner being knows where you are and what you want and is calling you to it. And it doesn't matter where you are along the path because you're on the path to where you want to be.
I get that.
Yeah.
From our last cruise, I think I finally got everything that you were saying. And mind you, every single time I hear you, there's new understanding.
Yeah.
When you say, oh, just go have fun. And at some point I was like, okay, so don't look at anything that's bad.
Speak a little louder, if you will.
Sure. So at some point it was, don't look at anything that's bad. Just look at things that are good. Ignore the bad.
Well, we're not saying don't look because sometimes you can't help it. We're just saying do your best to trend in the direction of things that feel better. And that's what Esther started doing. When she'd find herself in the middle of a thought, and she'd go, whoa, that thought doesn't feel so good. Can I find a thought that feels a little better? Or can I just release that thought and feel a little better? And every time now she can.
I got that.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
So I got married this year. Actually, I got married a couple of days ago thanks guys, to my wonderful husband who's absolutely my soulmate. And when he proposed, I was like, okay, I get this. Like all the things come together and then just clicked. I'm like, this is how it feels when you totally manifest the things that you were putting and practicing and pre-paving and calibrating to. And all those dates that I went with that went great and horrible, I'm like,
yeah,
that's what I want, that's what I don't want. And it just made sense when he came into my life.
Well, we're going to pause for a moment on that beautiful phrase, makes sense. And we're going to add to it a word like it, logical. And we want to incorporate the word logical with alignment. Because true logic, true knowing, true making sense is when what you're thinking in this moment matches what your inner being knows in this moment. That's truly what logic is. And that logical sentiment will continue to evolve until it clicks into utter knowing. It'll feel logical. It's more logical than illogical, and more logical and more logical and more logical and more logical, because there is not one right answer, but there is a right answer for you. There is a logical path for you. And the logical path for you can't be other than the path that your inner being knows, because your inner being knew you before you were in this body. Your inner being is you. Your inner being has been with you with every contrasting experience that you've lived. Your inner being has seen you launch every rocket of desire and has focused upon the rocket of desire that you've launched and has integrated that in and has stood right there and been part of the cooperative components that have been gathered. So there is a force of logic and one might call rightness for you that your inner being always holds true to. We're giving this to you as a sales job so that you will trust your feelings and so that you will want to pay attention to the way you feel. And it gets easier and easier and easier and easier. And of course, we've been saying to you for a long time that there are two ways of knowing if you're on your way to what you want. Two ways of knowing your state of alignment. One is by the way it feels, and the other is by what manifests. That's how you know how you're trending, by how you feel and what manifests. We want you to utilize both, as with our friend that we were talking with earlier about try this and it works and then you feel better. But it's way more powerful and beneficial for all of you if you can get that flipped, where it's how it feels that matters most, and then the manifestation follows. Because if you need a manifestation before you feel it, you slow everything down. But if you've shown yourself what feels better, what feels better, what feels better, what feels better, and that's how you're trending, then before you know it, you're in harmony with who you are and everything you want, and then click, 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 click.
Yeah, I get the clicking.
Yeah.
The tough part was to trust yourself, because sometimes that's work and not
it's a lot
work.
of work. There are a lot of people. We told you what people are thinking about Esther. Are you out of your mind? How long have you been wanting this? Yesterday. That can't be good, Mother. You sure you don't want to think about this like for a year?
I hear that.
Sure you don't want to think about this for more than one day? Really? How can you be sure in one day? How do you explain to somebody that you know what you know? How do you explain to someone when you're sure, you see?
I stopped. It's impossible to explain. It's harder for a mother to understand. It's like, what do? Why do you go on a cruise in the middle of pandemic?
Because it's a pandemic-free environment is one good reason.
Yeah.
It's a pandemic-free environment. It's a bubble. There's not that many around.
And sometimes when I'm so on certain subject, I am so sure, and I know. And there's some subject like my business. It's like, well, am I there? That's where the wobble happens the most for me.
Well, the nice thing is, when you have an experience where there's no wobble, just keep milking that and feeling the components of that. And before you know it, you can apply this knowledge to any subject. And before you know it, there are not that many wobbles. But never ask for a wobble-free life.
Because it would be boring?
Because in the wobble or in the contrast, there is powerful asking and expansion. Without the wobble, there's no expansion. There's no new asking.
So appreciate the wobble.
We do. You're all right? This is a really good time for a segment of refreshment.